Hi, my name's Luke Morgan, and I'm the founder of Like Me Partners. We're an organization that just thrives and loves to help people connect with people. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about the missing wedge. Maybe you've heard about this before, but the missing wedge is this solution to a problem that many of us are experiencing. Leaders have never felt more isolated than they do today. And there's a really simple reason why. I think maybe you can relate to this. So, as you've grown in your influence with your team, maybe you've noticed that you're more careful with what you say to people than you were when you first started, right? It used to be that you might be able to brainstorm ideas and kind of shout things out, and people would understand that you're there to kind of talk about ideas and think them through. But then maybe you had that time where somebody took something that was a throwaway statement for you and then like went whole hog on it, right? And diverted a whole bunch of sideways energy to a project that you were never intending them to. So maybe you start being careful about the things that you say out loud. And also another reason for it might be that, you might have a person on your team that you might need to offer some correction for, or maybe they might need to not be with your organization anymore. Might be really good reasons for that, but you have to learn to curate the things that you say. And so you begin to divert away from the people that you lead in terms of emotional space. And on the other side of it, as you have more and more influence over people on your team and their livelihood and those other things, maybe that day they're having a bad day, maybe they're not going to tell you about it anymore because they're afraid that maybe that'll hurt their chances for advancement, or maybe you'll think that they're negative. And so there's this wedge, this growing space of isolation that begins to grow between you and your team. Now, there's always been some level of divide between leaders and their teams. It's a natural thing. But the Harvard Business Review article that came out this year said that over 20% of people feel terribly lonely at work. Terribly lonely. And that's a really hard thing to see and to hear and to experience, but so many of us are. Because there's not just an isolation between people and their teams, there's also growing isolation between people and their peers. So maybe you remember the folks that you went to college or grad school with, or maybe people that you started at the same time in your career with them. And back then, maybe you commiserated about different problems, or maybe you'd provide solutions and things. But then maybe you went and worked at a different place for a while. You came back and you felt like you needed to maybe curate the experiences you shared with other people because maybe you wanted to validate your life choices. Be like, hey, I'm going to not talk so much about the things that didn't go so good, and I'm only going to share the highlights, right? This is like the Instagram lifestyle where you share all the things that go super well, and maybe you don't talk as much about the things that didn't go so well. But then when you do that, maybe the person on the other side of that conversation feels like, well, shoot, everything seems to be going so well for that person. Maybe I need to only share the things that are going really well for me. And so maybe you find yourself being isolated from your peers. But perhaps the saddest one is the separation that begins to happen between us and our mentors. Because as times go on, maybe you hear some advice from your mentor that seems like it's directed at a different time, maybe when things were simpler, or at least seemed simpler. Maybe you feel like there's a growing gap between their experience and what you're experiencing now. And so you want the validation and you want the respect and admiration of your mentor. So maybe you begin curating there as well. But the end product of this is if there's this isolation between us and the teams we lead, between us and our peers, and between us and our mentors, many of us are feeling more isolated than at any other time in history. And it's a terribly lonely place to be. As it pertains to beyond the feelings of it, maybe you're a person that's like, look, man, I've got my feelings under wraps. I'm just really more interested in how we can be more productive and how we can, bring out the best ideas. The thing is, when you're curating yourself between you and your teams, you and your peers, and you and your mentors, the best ideas are not raising to the top because people are curating their thoughts. That wild, crazy idea that might not have been the solution, but maybe it was the springboard to the solution, doesn't get brought up. That feedback that you really need to hear about that blind spot that you have that's costing you productivity, costing you meaningful relationships that are going to lead to new clients, all of these things are not being said because we're curating all their conversations in each of our different environments. So you're not getting the best value out of your teams. You're not getting the best possible solutions to problems. That blind spot that you have continues to plague you because you don't know that it's there. Isolation from your peers and your teams and your mentors costs all of us valuable productivity and money. And beyond all of these things, as if all of that wasn't enough, we know that the almost free advantage is workplace engagement, right? The data is in, the research is in. People that are engaged at work harder, care more, and actually provide more value for money than disengaged employees. But if they're feeling isolated and disconnected in their workplace, I promise you, they're not an engaged employee, and the data bears that out as well. The good news is if you feel like you're resonating with some of the things I'm saying, and you're like, man, I really feel like there's this isolation around this people part of the equation, right? Most of us have an idea what it is that we do. Simon Sinek would say some of us even know how we do it. Very few of us know why we do it. And almost nobody is thinking about who they do it with. This is the missing wedge. So many business and leaders and guys, people that work in the farming community, work in manufacturing, finance, nonprofit, ministry, manufacturing, you name it. I work with leaders all across these spaces, and they're all experiencing these same sets of problems. The good news is you don't have to continue to experience this. It is possible to build this wedge, this missing wedge, and we at Like Me Partners can help you do it. We can meet with you on a regular, consistent basis and begin asking you these questions that you need to be asked to be performing at a peak level. But we're not just this group that wants to sit there and just kind of, serve in this spot forever. We want to help you develop a network of people that will not be curating the things that they're sharing with you in the same way that other environments are, but instead will be pushing you to get better and a high accountability relationship. This isn't counseling. This isn't even executive coaching, like maybe what you've seen before. This is building a network of people around you that are all as committed as you are to growing in your knowledge base, your competencies, your productivity, and at the end of the day, that bottom line that your company or organization is working towards. So reach out to our team. We would love to have a consult with you and help you to build that missing wedge.